जय अनिल प्रेमाधन करुणा प्रचुर ना प्रभु कोथा गेला आचार्य ठाकुर कहाँ मोरा स्वरूप रूप कहाँ सनातन कहाँ दास रघुनाथ पतित जय अनिल प्रेमाधन करुणा कहाँ मोर भट्ट जुग कहाँ कबीरा एका काले कोथा गेला गोरा नटरा जय अनिल प्रेमाधन करुणा आसन कोटिव माथा अनले पाथिव गौरांग गो निधि कथा गेले पाब जय अनिल प्रेमाधन करुणा Lila. Sangana Kaya Kande Narottama Dasa. Jai Vaishnava Thakur, Vaishnava Thakur, Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada.
Srila Narottama Thakur ki. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, preparing for a talk on the disappearance day of Srila Narottama Thakur, I went to the great source of all knowledge, YouTube, and I saw that there was one class by Radhanath Swami, 6 hours long. And then there was part 1, part 2, part 3 about Narottama Thakur by Indradumna Maharaj. And I said to myself, first of all, I'm not a good storyteller. And secondly, how much can you cover in a class? So I decided to take a different route. But I do suggest if you want to learn the pastimes of Srila Narottama Thakur, that Sitala Mataji has written an amazing book. It's just so well written, so well researched on the glories of Srila Narottama Thakur. It's really a wonderful book. I recommend it highly. And if you want to learn more about his instructions, Yadunandana Swami has written a beautiful book on Narottama Shiksha. Also beautiful. But what I thought we would do today in the short time that we have is I looked in the other real source of knowledge, Vedabase, and I took excerpts of the different places Srila Prabhupada would quote the instructions of Narottama Thakur. And that's something I thought we could cover, at least some of them, in the short time that we have together. And it's amazing how much Srila Prabhupada was, clearly not just conversant, but completely familiar with, and you could even say absorbed in the songs of Narottama Thakur. And he, because we know he was transcribing, on his machine, and just easily and Narottama Thakur says, and he's again and again, again, that could go on for hours and hours, but I took some of the main things that Prabhupada, not top things, but the main topics or points that Srila Prabhupada took from from the teachings of Narottama Das Thakur, and he inserted them in his purports. So, the first one is about wasting time, or I guess it should be not wasting time. Prabhupada writes, Narottama Das Thakur, a great devotee and acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnava sect, has sung, My Lord, quote, My Lord, I have simply wasted my life. Having obtained the human body, I have neglected to worship your lordship, and therefore I have willingly drunk poison. End quote. In other words, Prabhupada continues, the human body is especially meant for cultivating knowledge of devotional service to the Lord, without which life becomes full of anxieties and miserable conditions. And I think most of us, except some rare great souls here perhaps, we've all experienced this. It's something that Narottama Das Thakur is saying in his humility, but haven't we all experienced this? We say, oh. I find what happens to me is, let's say I've neglected reading for some time, or I've neglected really focused chanting, or something like that, or reciting a prayer that I haven't said in a long time. And then I do that. I read with some absorption, or I try to chant with some absorption. I go, oh, I've wasted so much time with spaced out reading. Or is that just me? Anyone else have that experience? Right? So Narottama Das Thakur, he's writing, of course, out of his great humility, but he's also writing something that, hundreds of years ago we experience in our life on a regular basis, at least periodically. And we say, oh, Krishna consciousness is so nice, and I've taken it so much for granted, right? Or we get the association of a saintly devotee, and we see how they are absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Of course, we've had the disappearance of His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj, and the one thing of the 9 symptoms of bhava that Rupa Goswami talks about, one of them is avyakta kalatvam. And anyone here who's known Maharaj, that describes him to the T, right? He just never did anything outside of Krishna service. He was always using time in Krishna service. And so I find if I was associating with him, I would, again, that same thing. Oh, why do I space out checking out the news on the internet or this or that when I should be absorbed? So Narottama Das Thakur is saying this, and I think it's something that we can learn from him, and we can try to apply in our lives to to become a little avyakta kalatvam, to use our time in Krishna's service. Actually, it's so beautiful, Rupa Goswami's delineation of those 9 symptoms of bhava, because people can try to fake it, right? We hear stories of putting chili up your nose so that you cry and things like that. So these symptoms that he delineates in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Nectar of Devotion, you can't fake them. Like constantly chanting Krishna's name is another one, and things like that. So I thought that was a good thing to start with. I'm so used to giving seminars instead of classes, so I would like to say, so what do you think? But I guess you're not supposed to do that in class. So. But if any of the senior Vaishnavas here, there's so many of my seniors here, if you want to add something, please, we have a roaming microphone, and we would love to hear from you. The next topic I thought is Prabhupada would several times quote, here's one, Sri Ramachandra Kaviraj, the son of Kandavasi Chiranjiva and Sunanda, was a disciple of Srinivasacharya and the most intimate friend of Narottama Das Thakur, who prayed several times for his association. What is that? Ramachandra Sange Mage Narottama Das? Did I get that right? Yeah. We don't learn that much about friendship in our Shastra. It's there, of course, especially in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But here it's so clear, and Prabhupada quotes it again and again. refers to it again and again, this relationship and between Ramachandra Kaviraj and Srila Narottama Das Thakur, and how he ends his song yearning for his association. And how important a lesson is that for us, right? Prabhupada once told a devotee that if you don't associate with devotees, then you'll be forced. He said, human beings are social animals. That's what he said. And he said, if we don't associate with devotees, then we'll be forced to associate with non-devotees. And if we associate with non-devotees, we won't be able to follow the regulated principles. So association is so important. And having friendship in devotional service is so important. In every ashram, it's very important for brahmacharis. If brahmacharis want to remain in that ashram, it's essential that they have friendship with other devotees. And I think for many of us here who have done different austerities, especially some of the senior devotees here, of course, remember times of traveling in vans and distributing Prabhupada's books. And the friendships, just like, with Krishna and Sudama, being lost in the forest and how that... So the friendships that we created by performing different services together, especially different austerities, they seem to last a lifetime. If I come to Kartik and I see someone who I did traveling Sankirtan with 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and I see them and it's like an instant rekindling of friendship because we did service together. And that's so important at every ashram, but for brahmacharis who want to remain brahmacharis, it's essential. And then when you think about it, on one level, many relationships in our life, they morph into friendship. Friendship's almost like the end, not goal, but the end experience. In a marriage, okay, there may be some romance in the beginning, but as you get older and older, I've been married 35 years, romance is not a big deal. It's nothing. But friendship is there. Similarly, if you have children, right? At first, you're the protector of your child, and I remember the first time I sent my son to cross the street by himself to go to Bihari Lal's. And my wife and I were so nervous. But, no, it was time for him to go by himself all the way across the street. But as the children, my son's 33 years old now. Now it's a friendship, right? And even guru-disciple, to some extent, as in that first verse in the 7th canto, Brahmachari Gurukule, right, talks about a strong friendship with Guru. So even that, as the disciples get older and older and more mature, there's some friendship there. So friendship's so important. And in ISKCON, like my brother, he's a lawyer in America, and he has I said, how many people do you kind of know? And he said, we have 6 people, 7 people. And ISKCON, Shruti, how many devotees you must know? 2,000, right? Easily, right? And at the same time, if we have 2 or 3, even 1 or 2 close friends, Guyam Akyati Pricha, that we can really reveal our mind to, reveal our heart to, we're actually very fortunate. We're very fortunate. And one of the saddest things is sometimes if devotees, they're going through some struggles in their life and they feel they don't have anyone they can reveal their mind to. Because sometimes just the act of revealing your heart and your mind to someone else relieves you of at least 50% of the burden you're carrying. And it's much easier to progress towards improving our lot in life when we have that. And Narottama Das Thakur is putting it right in his song, that he's hankering. Of course, his friendship with Ramachandra Kaviraj must be on another level. But whatever levels, and of course the levels increase as we all get older and wiser and more Krishna conscious, and those relationships become deeper and deeper. So we learn that. And Prabhupada was regularly quoting, because I was going through I just typed in Narottama Das Thakur, of course, and there's so many. I got up to like the Adi Leela, the CC, and then the time was up, I had to give class. But, went through all the Bhagavatam quotes. Such an important point about friendship. Yeah. Okay. Another thing that we know Prabhupada would regularly say is the language that Narottama Das Thakur wrote in. So here's an example. Anything sung in the praise of the Lord is Shruti mantra. There are songs by Thakur Narottama Das, one of the acharyas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, composed in simple Bengali language. And of course, that's Prabhupada's language. But Thakur Vishwanath Chakravarti, another very learned acharya of the same Sampradaya, has approved the songs of Thakur Narottama Das to be as good as Vedic mantras. How many times does Prabhupada say that, right? It's Narayani, he says it many times, right? Yeah. And this is so because of the subject matter. The language is immaterial, but the subject matter is important. This is a quote from the first canto of the Bhagavatam, where the ladies are on the roof in Hastinapur, and Krishna is leaving, and they're praising him, and Prabhupada's talking about their language, comparing it to Narottama Das Thakur's use of language. And we also know that Narottama Das Thakur was given the order to preach to the general masses. So what a lesson for us about how to adjust things according to time, place, and circumstance in our preaching, in our spreading of Krishna consciousness. And we may speak to a MIT professor in one language and a street sweeper in the other, and we may adjust, but the message remains the same. And actually, we are so fortunate that, we take almost for granted the beautiful songs of Narottama Das Thakur. We just sang it a few minutes ago, right? And the whole Gaudiya Siddhanta is there. And of course, for someone like myself, I don't know if it's simple language. I don't know if it's, because I don't know Bengali. But Prabhupada repeatedly says how he put it in simple language, but then how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and our Srila Prabhupada said that it's as good, if not better, than the Vedic mantras. So Prabhupada also told us that we should repeat the Shastra, but in our own words. So we don't have to, I can remember sometimes in the Srila Prabhupada disciples here can remember these sometimes devotees, when they were giving class, they would try to almost imitate Prabhupada's, even his Bengali pronunciation. And there wasn't necessary to do that. We want to quote Prabhupada and present his teachings. And so Narottama Das Thakur is a brilliant example of taking the philosophy and making it presentable so that people can understand. And that's certainly our job as following in his footsteps, following in Srila Prabhupada's footsteps. Of course, Prabhupada was also told to preach to the religionists, the philosophers, etc. But Krishna gave him a different audience, especially at first. So Prabhupada adjusted. Right? When asked, what is the bliss of Krishna consciousness like? And I don't know the exact quote, but something like 100 times better than taking LSD. Because he's talking to people who've experienced LSD, so presents it in that way. So what a wonderful example by Narottama Das Thakur of how to explain Krishna consciousness to others. Okay. How long does this go? Till 11 o'clock? Or 9 o'clock. Actually, what we could do, I have, of course, many more, but on these 3 points, are there any comments or questions about either the friendship, the wasting time, or the simple language? Yes, Shruti Kirti Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Since you asked,
Yes.
Wasting time, the one thing I'm understanding more and more with Srila Prabhupada, how he didn't waste time. And one of the essential items of that was regulation.
Was
Being regulated in his activities. You know, I could see that despite everything he did in worldwide society, writing all his books, initiating, he was very regulated. And part of it was his bhajan, which I've been saying in the afternoon. He always had a few hours in the afternoon where he would chant, he would do bhajans, he would read his books. And it was a daily, it wasn't sporadically, every day. So that not wasting time, if you want to do that, becoming regulated is an important part of that.
wow. Thank you so much.
And as far as friendship, we remember in the 60s and the early 70s, our mantra before becoming devotee was you don't trust anyone over 30, right? We all remember that. We were 18, 19. If you were over 30, you were already lost as far as we were concerned. But then Srila Prabhupada came 70 years old. He didn't come as a guru. He actually befriended everyone initially. That was the big thing. Everyone, he befriended them. And then, of course, he more and more gave us rules and regulations, things to do, and others could understand the difference between themselves and Srila Prabhupada. So those things, I think, are very, very important.
I remember reading a letter where Prabhupada said, take good care of Ananda Prabhu. He is my very old and very, very dear friend.
Yes, yes.
Take care of him. Yeah. Thank you. Panchagoda Prabhu?
Hey, Braja. So, friendship, what do you consider a close friend? You know, we have general friends, we have many general friends
Yeah.
and acquaintances, and, you know, you're friendly with people, and some people consider, oh, you're my best friend, or this way, but how do you define a close friend?
Well, even in Sanskrit, and I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but there's Bandhu, Surit, and what's the other one? There's one more other one that Mitra, yeah. And Surit is a close friend, from what I understand, from Suridam Sarvabhutanam. I believe Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that. Anyway, I'm just trying to dazzle you with my Sanskrit knowledge. But now, in reality, one way to answer that, Panchagoda Prabhu, is that even our deepest, darkest shortcomings, we would be open to, because we trust that person to be confidential. You know, so I think friendship has a lot to do with trust. What does Prabhupada write about trust? What is it about sublime, implicit faith in something sublime? Right? You know, faith is implicit trust in something sublime. Right? So trust is, of course, there Prabhupada's talking about trust in Krishna, but trust that in these days that whatever you tell someone's not going to end up on social media 5 minutes later. You know, so that's one level, just how that we know that this person is, and then another is going to keep things confidential. And then, is it Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, swajati snighasya, is that right? With great affection. And swajati, so person who is like-minded, not literally same caste, but we perceive the world in somewhat similar ways. And often it's that is also a person that we're going to have likely a very closer friendship with. You know, we may even to say we may even come from some similar backgrounds, or at least we have some similar approaches to Krishna consciousness and Krishna bhakti, right? I think that's that. And then I think, as I was saying, it often manifests by doing service together.
And they have to get your jokes, right?
They have to get your jokes. Yes, that's the only reason I sometimes don't get along with Brahmatirtha Prabhu, because I don't always get his really bad jokes. No, but he's an example of, for me, someone where there's some swajati there, and also some similar experiences in Krishna consciousness. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone like to add to that? The question here?
Here.
I thought this point about the friendship was really very important and pertinent because it can make or break your life. So does that mean that one has to be very careful and introspective before choosing? If our Swajatiya's definition is not favorable, then what should one do?
Yeah, one should be a little careful. It's just like, again, this is not what we would do in the Holy Dham, but for those of us who grew up you just wouldn't do this in the Jamuna or the Ganga. But sometimes before you dive into a body of water, sometimes you'll test it. Of course, the Vaishnava way is test it with your hand, right? But we used to test it with our feet like a swimming pool, see how cold it was before you dove in. So sometimes we kind of test, but is this person going to be, confidential? And then as that trust develops, then we can become thicker friends. I like that. But yes, choosing our really close friends is something that, and also Krishna arranges for that to take place. As you were talking, I had another thought I thought was really good, but now I can't remember it. It'll probably come up in a second. So, is that all right? No?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to give the mic to anyone else? Yes, Prabhu. And then we'll perhaps carry on. Or we can go on. I mean, friendship's such an important thing, and such an important lesson from Srila Narottama Das Thakur.
Thank you, Prabhuji. The third topic you mentioned is about simple language.
Yeah.
Then the last phrase I heard you saying, time, place, and circumstances, which of course Srila Prabhupada has repeatedly said that. So one question that I have on that is that on one hand, I'm reading books by Bhakti Vikas Maharaj.
By who?
Bhakti Vikas Maharaj. Mothers and Masters, very powerful book. Other is strictly speaking, just simply follow Prabhupada, repeat the words of Srila Prabhupada. So that's one standard. And the other is prominent leaders who are very successful, showing results all over the world, headed by Radhanath Maharaj and many others. So how do we decide who is truly following Prabhupada? What did Prabhupada say on this topic of time, place, and circumstance, adjustment?
Well, there's an assumption there that there's a right way and a wrong way. But what about both being right? This is actually, this is my field of my profession, right? Conflict resolution. And often we think this way is right, this way is right. But just like in the 11th canto, chapter 20, chapter 20, it begins, Uddhava's asking, well, some people say there's 16 elements, some people say 9, some people say 3, some people say 20, like that. And Krishna replies, they can all be right, if looking at it from their angle of vision. So both can be, pralena parichiyate, we will see by the results. And if both ways of our preaching are being successful, then, why not? There's some boundaries, staying within the Siddhanta. But what was Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja offering in 1936 about a different bottle? He was talking about Bhakti Siddhanta, took the same essence but put it in a different... Does anyone remember that reference? Anyway, he was just saying how Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was so expert at taking the ancient tradition but then presenting it in a way that common people could understand. What to speak of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and what to speak of Srila Prabhupada speaking to the hippies, and then you quoted some. So we can adjust the presentation according to time, place, and circumstance, but we have to, the physician can have really good bedside manners as long as he's still giving the medicine. Okay? Wait, someone who hasn't, yes,
About being a friend, I think Prabhupada sums it up nicely when he writes, your ever well-wisher. True friend is your ever well-wisher. And we've seen with Srila Prabhupada, one can fall down to the lowest platform. Prabhupada is still there as a friend, understanding the person internally, the heart. So a real friend, no matter where you are, what happens to you, that friendship would be maintained. That's it.
Yeah, and there's even stories, as you know better than me, of people who did really not nice things at all, or said not nice things, and Prabhupada, I know His Holiness Sridhar Maharaj once told me, I won't mention the name, but Prabhupada said, tried to bring him back. Right? And even when another devotee who had tried to do some stealing a temple, this and that, here in Vrindavan, Prabhupada was very kind to him when he showed up again in 76. So, yeah, like that. Let's see if anyone who hasn't spoken, why don't we move on to a few more points? How's that sound? Okay? Here's a big one for us. The statements of Srila Narottama Das Thakur about visiting the Dham. Okay? Because we have to understand this carefully. This one's we have to understand carefully. Pure devotees of the Lord are not enthusiastic to put aside their service to the Lord in order to go visit holy places of pilgrimage. Now don't all leave immediately. Wait till the end of the purport. A great devotee of the Lord in modern times. I like how Prabhupada calls Narottama Das Thakur modern times. Because we might think, 400 years ago, modern times. Srila Narottama Das Thakur has sung like this, quote, to visit holy places of pilgrimage is another bewilderment of the mind, because devotional service to the Lord at any place is the last word in spiritual perfection. And he continues, for pure devotees of the Lord who are completely satisfied with the transcendental loving service of the Lord, there is hardly any necessity, so now he's changed it to hardly any necessity to visit the various places of pilgrimage. But those who are not so advanced have the prescribed duties of visiting pilgrimage sites and regularly performing the rituals. So he's kind of hinting here that it's not necessarily talking about bhakti, but more karma kanda or just more ritualistic bhakti. Then he continues. Another significant point is that one must go to sacred places not only to take bath there, but to search out great sages like Maitreya and take instructions from them. If one does not do so, his traveling to places of pilgrimage is simply a waste of time. So that's an important thing for us. Narottama Das Thakur, a great acharya of the Vaishnava sect, has for the present forbidden us to go to such places of pilgrimages, because in this age, the times having so changed, a sincere person may have a different impression on seeing the behavior of the present residents. The present residents, so present company excluded. He has recommended that instead of taking the trouble to travel to such places, one should concentrate his mind on Govinda, and that will help him. Of course, to concentrate one's mind on Govinda in any place is a path meant for those who are the most spiritually advanced. It is not for ordinary persons. Ordinary persons may still derive benefit from traveling to holy places like Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, and Haridwar. Then one more. Srila Narottama Das Thakur, a great acharya in the preceptorial line of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has said for our benefit that one can perfectly see the dhams. Listen to this. One can perfectly see the dhams only when one completely gives up the mentality of lording it over material nature. One's spiritual vision develops proportionately to one's giving up the debased mentality of unnecessarily enjoying matter. So there's different things. My understanding, after trying to understand as best I could, is, what is that verse? Salile nakarhichet? Right? Don't go to a holy place just to take bath, but seek out, but the key to a holy place is what we have here today, is the Sangha of devotees, and in our case, servants of Srila Prabhupada. So, yes, it's not enough to go to a holy place and go to the different tirthas, the different places of Krishna's pastime, although that's wonderful. But to go, how fortunate it is to go to the holy place and then go in the association of great devotees. I don't know if he's here right now, but I mean, living here for so many years, devotees got the association of Dinabandhu Prabhu at the holy places, and Daivi Shakti Mataji, and so many other great souls, and doing that is at least a great step in the right direction of actually seeing the holy dhams properly. But also it's said, we have the 10 offenses that go against the holy name, the holy dhams. And when we come here, we should be on our guard to just not, especially don't offend devotees in the holy dham. Oh gosh, please. I was in Govardhan yesterday, Vaisheshika Prabhu gave initiation. And it wasn't one of the initiation vows, but during his lecture, he asked everyone to take a vow. And what was that vow? He said, don't read any criticism of devotees on the internet or on social media. And don't write any criticism of devotees in social media on the internet. I texted him later and I said, if everyone followed your instruction, I wouldn't have any service anymore. There wouldn't be any conflicts. But I thought it was such a nice instruction. Yeah, to not, and that's why it's sometimes said for ordinary people, only come to the Dham for 3 days, because usually you can avoid sinful activities for 3 days. 4th day, maybe it's tough, but the instruction is there to just be so careful. So my understanding, and please, if someone has a deeper understanding, help me. Narottama Das Thakura is saying that, coming to the holy dhams as a kind of a ritualistic, almost karma-kandic, so your son will get into IIT or something like that, is not the appropriate reason for coming. But come here, visit the holy places in the association of advanced devotees, hearing and chanting about Krishna. That should be our sole purpose. I don't know if it was Prabhupada who said this, but we would hear people say Prabhupada said that you won't find Krishna loitering in Loi Bazaar. Now, I don't know if that was directly him or someone quoting him, but anyway, it's a good point. Not that we don't have to buy our clothing and things like that, but to use our time carefully, I think, is an important instruction of Srila Narottama Das Thakur. Would anyone like to add to that point? Yes, microphone.
In fact, in Sanatan Dharma in India, people, they go to holy places to get rid of sinful acts.
Yes, that's right, dump theirs. Yeah.
So we should not have that mentality. And in the scripture it is written that Vrindavan is not enlisted in Tirtha, because it is the home of Krishna.
It's the home of Krishna, yes.
So this is more transcendental than the Tirthas.
It's the home of Krishna. When you said that, it reminded me, many years ago, might have been in the early 90s, the gentleman who played Krishna in the Mahabharata came to Krishna Balaram Mandir. And, all of the devotees, especially the devotees were like, to this actor, like, please have my obeisance. But he was fortunate to come to the real home of Krishna, not the studio, but the real home. Yes. Okay, shall we continue? Anything else about the Holy Dham? Yes, Prabhu? Okay, Mataji and then Prabhuji, yes. You're going to quote something.
Pardon?
You're going to quote something?
No. I have a question, Prabhuji. So this point about friendship,
Oh, back to friendship.
if that's okay. So I was just thinking, I mean, everything that you said made me think about this. So when we talk about Swajatiya, so actually what I was referring to earlier was that if our own way of thinking is not correct, but then we collect or attract friends of the same nature, then we will be perpetuating that inclination. So then, how does one get out of that catch?
Easy. Desire pure devotional service, and Krishna will send us friends who have the same desire. But you're right, if you want to criticize devotees, you're going to easily find association of people who want to criticize devotees. Right? Like minds attract. So therefore, if we increase our purity of our desire, and that comes up here, by the way, if we get to it, I'll read it now. To raise oneself from hellish life to the highest position of spiritual understanding is to transform this lust into love of Krishna. Sri Narottama Das Thakur, a great acharya of the Vaishnava Sampradaya, said, Kama Krishna Kamarpane. Due to our lust, we want many things for our sense gratification, but the same lust can be transformed in a purified way so that we want everything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So tatra loyam apimulyam ekalam. That the only price to pay for Krishna consciousness is an intense desire for it. And one way to really cultivate that desire is to have friends, at least equals or even someone who's a little more advanced than us. And, Krishna consciousness is caught as much as it's taught. Right? Shrutikirti Prabhu is a perfect example of this. He caught Prabhupada's Sangha. Right? And all of us, so when we associate with someone who's like-minded and we're trying to develop a strong desire, Kama Krishna Kamarpane, as Narottama Das Thakur instructs us, then we help each other and we point out each other's shortcomings. I really think this is thank you for this. This is an important point. And Panchagodapu, this also I think answers or addresses your question. A really good friend will not only praise us, oh thank you, but will say, Prabhuji, that was so bogus. Right? We'll actually point out our faults. And because there's trust, we'll accept that in the best way possible. Right? So that's, and I think communities of devotees, if the community, I've seen this, if the Vaishnava community is really sweet and tight, then we can actually, we sometimes even use the word be disruptive. Say, you're walking, you're about to walk off the cliff. Get the hell out of there. The heck out of there. Right? So that's a real friend. It's not just yes, and you're so nice, and mutual admiration society, but also be willing sometimes to point out our shortcomings, and because the friendship is there, we'll take it, and it will really touch our heart. Other things on this strong desire that Narottama Das Thakur is saying here, or on the other point we were talking about, which I'm having a senior moment. Yes. Let me point out one other thing, because it's something that we take for granted. How many times have people sat on this Yasasan and said, we follow Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra? How many times have you heard that in your 20, 30, 40, 50 years as in devotional service? Maharaj, how many times have you quoted that? So many times, right? Where does it come from? Narottama Das Thakur, a great devotee and acharya in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, says that all spiritual activities should be understood from three sources, namely saintly persons, standard scriptures, and the spiritual master. What is the verse? Guru Shastra, what is it? Guru Sadhu Shastra Chitete Kore. Yeah, Korea, right. So we actually get that from Srila. I don't know if it's elsewhere, but at least from Prabhupada in many places, he's saying that that Narottama Das Thakur said Guru Sadhu Shastra. And how important is that? How many beautiful debates do we have in ISKCON about that? About Guru? No, we should follow that. But still, those three actually are in a line. And it's very important, such an important point for us in order to check what is bona fide. And that's coming from Srila Narottama Das Thakur. How wonderful. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, you had mentioned about a person who prayed the Lord of Krishna. In 80s in Mahabharata, in 80s Bharadwaj was a famous artist. He was most popular and famous all over India. For Janmashtami in 89, as the National PR Director, I was asked to invite him. So he came to our Delhi Janmashtami program. But when I called him, he said, my sincere desire is to attend Mangal Aarti in Vrindavan temple.
And then he did that. He came here.
So I was very fortunate to bring, along with a couple of friends, in the guest house, room 44, the big room there. We hosted him, attended Mangal Aarti. So that's one thing. Other thing, if you allow me, Mukund Maharaj, I had a good fortune of serving Mukund Maharaj 40 years ago. And he shared a very amazing story that on friendship, topic of friendship, that in 66, in those days, as a beginning Hare Krishna, he was arrested along with some drug abuse case. He was sitting in jail. At that time, Maharaj was sharing that nobody, his girlfriends, father, mother, brother, sister, nobody called him. Only one person who called him was Swamiji. So he shared that story that Prabhupada is the one, in those days he was not initiated. Michael, how are you? So that was very touching. There is one person who cares about me. So that's our goal, to be spiritual friends.
And of course, the Paramatma is also called a friend. He's always coming with us. So one last thing, because it's perhaps, well, they're all so important, but super, super important that we learn from Narottama Das Thakur. And that is about serving Vaishnavas. Srila Narottama Das Thakur has sung Tadiya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Paicha Keva, which means that unless one serves the Vaishnavas and Brahmanas, one cannot get liberated from the material clutches. Srila Narottama Das Thakur therefore says, Tandera Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas, Janame Janame Hoy E Abhilas. Birth after birth, I desire to serve the lotus feet of the acharyas and live in a society of devotees. So, this we all know. What is it? Mahat Sevam Dwara Mahur Vimuktes. There's so many verses that talk about the importance of serving devotees. And this is, the example, I understood, again, when someone like Shruti Kirtipu was here, I say Prabhupada said, but I'm always careful because where did I get that from? And he would know if it's true or not. But anyway, my understanding is that walking on Juhu one time, there was a wealthy person with his child. And Prabhupada said, what can you do for that wealthy person? He probably, he's so rich, this, that. But if you take a 1 rupee sweet and you give it to the child, he'll be so happy. And so similarly with Krishna and the devotees, if we serve the devotees, and the service has to be, should be uncool. I just remember, now it's even 10 times more crowded, but when sometimes in Guru Puja, the darshan mandap was so crowded, and then sannyasis, and especially well, I can say who it is because he was upset as much as anyone else. As Gopal Krishna Maharaj would take Charanamrita, then he had to go this side for a Guru Puja, and some super enthusiastic disciples were acting more like bulldozers and shoving Vaishnavas around left and right because they were serving their Guru. And it was so embarrassing to Maharaj that they were offending other devotees so they could so-called serve their Guru. So, service should be done, should be anukul also, just as bhakti should be anukul. And we should serve great souls, and even the great souls who haven't fully manifested their great soulness yet, but are on the path. And we serve them, and they'll be more and more enthusiastic also. So there's nothing like service to devotees to get Krishna's blessings. And we learned that. We just wrote two songs by Narottama Das Thakur, who's emphasizing that. So we have just 2 minutes. Any of the senior Vaishnavas like to add anything? So many senior Matajis here, Maharaj, others? Yes, Narottama Mataji.
It is concerning the Dham, visiting the Dham, that subject. I was living in Los Angeles for many years and doing service in the Sankirtan department. And our leader, when Prabhupada was there, he heard Prabhupada also saying that it was nice if the devotees would sacrifice being in a festival for going out on Sankirtan. So, and he concluded from that later on that Sankirtan is very important, therefore let's not send the devotees to the holy Dham. So he was very reluctant to send us to the Dham. And something came through to Prabhupada, so when that devotee later on was also in the Dham and Prabhupada saw him, he corrected that idea.
Yes.
He said that is the holy Dham where we get the association of so many Vaishnavas and doing so many services. That is giving us inspiration for later on doing service.
Wonderful.
In our, what did he call it? Our designated...
Prabhu Datta Desh.
Prabhu Datta Desh, yeah.
Yes.
Prabhu Datta Desh.
Yeah.
Then...
That's such an important point. Prabhupada said to come to the Holy Dham and recharge our spiritual batteries. And I had a similar... The way I was brought up in Krishna consciousness, we went on Sankirtan and Gaur Purnima, Janmastami, it didn't matter, And actually I found that wasn't so good for my, of course, going on Sankirtan, but still, that samskar was there, and I didn't, until I kind of moved here, and I didn't really appreciate Madhavatiti Bhakti Janani, right? That the importance of these whole, we'd look at it, Narottama Das Thakur's, Sankirtan, whatever it was, Sankirtan, which is, of course, Sankirtan is wonderful, but that balance of deepening our devotion and practicing other angas of bhakti and spreading Krishna consciousness should be there. Because I saw in my own life, I had this, and that same person I think you're talking about did some of the training of me also. And so I got that impression. So I think that indicates time is up, but thank you so much, and Srila Narottama Das Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you for singing. Beautiful.